The sun shone brightly on Jacksonville, Florida. It was a typical day in this peaceful residential area. Children played in their yards, their laughter echoing down the street. Neighbors chatted over freshly mowed lawns, enjoying the warm breeze. Everything felt calm, serene, almost idyllic. But behind one door, a storm was brewing. A storm of rage, of fear, of desperation. Inside the house, a man paced back and forth, his face contorted in anger. In his hand he clutched a gun, its cold metal glinting ominously in the sunlight streaming through the window. The peace of the neighborhood was about to be shattered. The man flung open the door and stepped out onto the porch. His eyes, wild and unfocused, scanned the street. His finger tightened on the trigger. This was it. This was the day everything would change. The first call came in at 2:13 p.m. A woman's voice, breathless and panicked, screamed into the phone. "There's a man with a gun! He's threatening people! Please, you need to come quickly!" The operator struggled to get an address, her voice calm and reassuring despite the urgency of the situation. Within seconds, the phones at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office lit up. Call after call poured in, each one painting a more terrifying picture of the unfolding situation. A man with a gun was on a rampage. He was waving it around, shouting threats, terrorizing innocent people. The dispatcher's fingers flew across the keyboard, relaying the information to responding units. Every second counted. Lives were at stake. The peace of a sunny afternoon had been shattered, replaced by the chilling sound of sirens racing towards the unknown. The roar of sirens sliced through the quiet neighborhood, piercing the stillness of the night with an urgency that couldn't be ignored, shattering the illusion of peace. People stopped what they were doing, their conversations halting mid-sentence, their activities abandoned in an instant. Their eyes were drawn towards the growing commotion, curiosity quickly turning to fear. Word spread like wildfire. There was a man with a gun. Panic set in as fear gripped the hearts of residents. They rushed to secure their homes, locking doors and windows, and gathering their loved ones close. Police cruisers, lights flashing and sirens blaring, arrived on the scene with a sense of urgency that heightened the tension. Officers, their faces grim and determined, jumped out of their vehicles, their hands hovering near their holstered weapons, ready for any sudden movement. The situation was volatile, unpredictable. One wrong move could have deadly consequences. The officers fanned out, securing the perimeter with practiced precision, their eyes constantly scanning for the suspect, every shadow and movement scrutinized. The air crackled with tension, a palpable sense of danger hanging heavy in the air. Their training took over, instincts honed by countless hours of preparation. They were here to protect and serve, to de-escalate and control the situation. But even the most seasoned officer couldn't shake the feeling that this situation was about to explode. The weight of responsibility pressed down on them, knowing that the safety of the community rested in their hands. They moved with caution, every step measured, every decision critical. The tension was almost tangible, a silent countdown to an unknown outcome. They were prepared for action, ready to face whatever came next, hoping to bring a peaceful resolution to a dangerous situation. The officers identified the suspect's location, a small single-story house with its front door slightly ajar. They could hear shouting coming from inside, the unmistakable timbre of a man's voice laced with rage and despair. It was time to confront the danger. Taking cover behind their patrol cars, the officers drew their weapons. Their voices, amplified by megaphones, boomed through the quiet neighborhood. "This is the police! Come out of the house with your hands up! Drop your weapon!" Their commands were met with silence, a silence that was somehow more terrifying than the previous shouting. The door to the house creaked open slowly, revealing the suspect. His eyes were bloodshot, his face contorted in a mixture of anger and fear. In his hand he held the gun, his finger trembling on the trigger. The officers held their breath, their fingers tightening on their own weapons. Time seemed to stand still. Section 5. Shots fired, silence falls. The air crackled with tension. The man stood in the doorway, bathed in the afternoon sun, a stark silhouette against the light. He raised the gun, not towards the sky, not towards himself, but towards the line of police officers. A collective gasp escaped from the onlookers who had gathered at a safe distance. "Drop your weapon!" The command echoed once again, desperate, pleading, but it was too late. The man's finger tightened on the trigger. In that split second, everything changed. A deafening volley of gunshots rang out, shattering the tense silence. The suspect crumpled to the ground, the gun clattering onto the pavement beside him. A cloud of smoke hung in the air, slowly dissipating in the afternoon breeze. The echo of the gunshots faded, leaving behind an eerie silence. The standoff was over, but at what cost? Section 6. Tragedy in the Aftermath. As the smoke cleared, the stark reality of the situation became horrifyingly clear. The suspect lay motionless on the ground, his blood staining the concrete red. The officers, their faces etched with shock and adrenaline, cautiously approached the body, their weapons still drawn. The scene was secured. Paramedics were waved in. The neighborhood, so peaceful just moments ago, was now a crime scene. Residents watched in horror and disbelief, the sound of sirens still ringing in their ears. The idyllic afternoon had been shattered by violence, leaving behind a trail of fear and unanswered questions. The suspect? Who was he? What drove him to this desperate act? The questions hung heavy in the air, as heavy as the scent of gunpowder that lingered long after the last siren had faded into the distance. The investigation was just beginning. Section 7. A troubled past revealed. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the neighborhood, the identity of the suspect was revealed. The quiet streets, now disrupted by the flashing lights of police cars, seemed to hold their breath as the community braced for the news. His name was Michael, a resident of the neighborhood, known to some as a quiet man, to others as a recluse. He was often seen walking alone, his head down, avoiding eye contact with those around him. Details of Michael's life slowly emerged, painting a picture of a deeply troubled individual. His apartment, a small, dimly lit space, was filled with personal items that hinted at a life of struggle and isolation. Court records revealed a history of petty crime, fueled by a long and losing battle with addiction. Each arrest, each court appearance, was a step further into a life that seemed to spiral out of control. But more disturbingly, neighbors whispered about Michael's mental health, his increasingly erratic behavior, his descent into paranoia and delusion. They spoke of nights filled with shouting, of a man who seemed to be losing his grip on reality. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, revealing a man teetering on the edge, failed by a system that couldn't or wouldn't help him. Social workers, overwhelmed and under-resourced, could only do so much. His cries for help, lost in the void of a society that often stigmatizes and ignores the mentally ill. The bustling city around him, indifferent to his suffering, moved on without a second glance. Michael's story, though tragic, was not unique. It was a reflection of a larger issue, a society that often turns a blind eye to those in need. It was a story repeated too often, a stark reminder of the human cost of untreated mental illness. The candlelight vigils and rallies for mental health awareness serve as a poignant reminder of the lives lost and the urgent need for change. Section 8. Jacksonville reacts. Fear, support, and calls for change. The events of that day sent shockwaves through Jacksonville, leaving the community in a state of disbelief and sorrow. The image of a man with a gun, the sound of gunfire, and the chaos that ensued, the tragic loss of life. These were not things people were used to in this quiet corner of Florida. The serenity of their daily lives was shattered. Fear and grief gripped the community as families and friends mourned the loss of their loved ones. Yet, amidst the tragedy, a different sentiment began to emerge, a sense of unity and resilience. There was an outpouring of support for the police officers who had risked their lives to protect their community. Candlelight vigils were held in honor of the victims. Flowers and messages of gratitude were placed near the site of the shooting, creating a makeshift memorial that became a place of solace for many. However, the incident also ignited a fierce debate about mental health resources and police procedures. The community was divided on how to move forward. Were there missed warning signs? Could more have been done to prevent this tragedy? Could Michael's tragic end have been prevented if he had received the help he so desperately needed? These questions haunted the community. The community grappled with these difficult questions, seeking answers and solutions. They demanded better mental health services, more comprehensive support systems, and a re-evaluation of police response to mental health crises. The call for change was loud and clear, echoing through the streets of Jacksonville. Section 9. A heavy question: could this have been prevented? The tragedy in Jacksonville left an indelible mark on the community. Life went on, but the memory of that day lingered, a constant reminder of the fragility of peace, the devastating consequences of untreated mental illness, and the complex realities of law enforcement in a society grappling with these issues. There are no easy answers, no simple solutions. The questions linger, echoing through the quiet streets of Jacksonville. Could Michael's death have been prevented? Could things have been done differently? These questions serve as a powerful call to action, a plea for understanding, for compassion, for a commitment to building a society where tragedy like this is not just mourned, but actively prevented.